Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Earhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, everyone. So today we have Mike Chapman, and he's a coach. He's also a fellow podcaster, so I can't wait for him to share all about what he does and really help you guys. So, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Again, my name is Mike Chapman, and I am a certified recovery life coach and brain spotting provider with Polar Life Consulting and Husband Material. And I'm also a childhood sexual abuse survivor and family-controlled sex trafficking survivor. And I'm also part of the Speakers Bureau within Survivor Network NC for North Carolina, which is where I live, as a lived experience expert with them, working with anti-trafficking efforts. And like you mentioned, I have an award-winning podcast, minor award, but I claim it, where I interview male childhood sexual abuse and trafficking survivors and those who serve them on all platforms. And I'm sure you'll probably have links in the show notes, but it's called Healing for Male Survivors with Mike Chapman.
Awesome. Well, your work, it means a lot. I know that you're helping a lot of people. It's a topic that's really tough, but it's real. It happens far too often. And to have somebody like you that people can go to who understands a lot about what they're going through really makes a difference in their own recovery.
Right, absolutely. The stats for that, according to the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, in the U.S., for females, 1 in 4 females will be sexually abused or assaulted in the U.S. by the age of 18. For males, I thought it'd be 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100. It is 1 in 6 males are sexually abused or assaulted in the U.S., though when you ask perpetrators who didn't have a sexual preference, whether males or females, they would choose males because boys don't tell. Because of the stigma and so forth, they will not tell. And part of the grooming is to convince them that they are complicit, that they're part of it. Well, you had a physiological response to touch. Well, see, that means you liked it, and that means you're consenting to it, and that means you're part of it. And no, that's a normal physiological response. The male body doesn't know good touch from bad touch. It just knows touch.
Yep, exactly.
And so your body will respond whether you like it or not to touch. And guys don't necessarily know, oh, that was bad. And they don't even necessarily have the language to realize, oh, that icky thing that happened to me a long time ago, oh, that was abuse. And oftentimes they won't even realize it until, for many, they have children of their own, and that child reaches that same age, and they realize, whoa, if that guy did to my child what he did to me, my gosh, that would be so horrible. And then they go, oh, and they get it. Because they didn't think that it would be this horrible abuse thing, but then they realize, yeah, that's really, really bad. And so there's a whole bunch of reasons why men don't disclose, but an average research is now saying for male abuse survivors, it's from the time the abuse stops, on average 25 years before the first disclosure, the first time they tell anyone what had happened. Yeah.
Wow. And, when things happen when you're a child, especially, like that, you're gonna carry it your whole life. And
Right.
the sad part is, like you're saying, it takes 25 years on average for them to talk to anyone about it. And you and me both know you don't get through something without talking to somebody, hopefully an expert, about that. That's when you can really start to work on it, work through it, and start to heal.
Right, absolutely. And there's a lot of licensed professionals out there, though I've heard success stories and horror stories from a lot of the people
Yep.
I work with. Some are not equipped to work on it. It's like, oh no, let's just talk about the present. They're not equipped to deal with all these horrible traumatic events
Hmm.
that their clients have experienced. Some are great, and I have a wonderful therapist myself who has all kinds of tools in his toolbox to work with all of his different clients and has pulled different tools when working with me, and that has been tremendous in my own healing. Though some EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is like the de facto treatment that a lot of therapists use for early childhood traumas, such as sexual traumas like abuse and trafficking and so forth. That's like their go-to because that's the big buzzword now, and that's what they get a lot of training in. But it's the only thing in your toolbox is a hammer. Everything looks like a nail,
Yep.
and so but there's some good and bad with that particular process. There's lots of other ones that are less re-traumatizing and more effective tools out there. And having more tools in your toolbox, more options to pull from, can be more beneficial for those seeking help for sure. So if you do find a professional who is a licensed therapist, ask them and make sure that they're a good fit, make sure they have the training and they're equipped to deal with the whatever trauma that you have experienced for sure.
Yep. And that's what I like about you. You have a therapist, you're still getting help, and you're still learning new tools from your own, journey of getting help to help your clients. And I feel like that's where a lot of professionals sometimes fail, is they don't continue to grow and develop so they can further help their clients.
Yes, absolutely. And I know my own therapist, he's gotten training and then he geeks out about all the different tools he comes and he'll tell me and we'll spend like 15 minutes of the session of him geeking out about the new stuff he's learning,
Yep.
and that he's now on level 3 of this particular therapy and that they've got like 10 levels, and so you just continue to learn and progress, and I love to see that excitement in those that are working on me. And then as a life coach, I have my own clients that I work with as well. And I'm continually learning and trying to find new approaches, different tools to help work with them, different materials and so forth. And yeah, you always keep learning for sure.
Yep. Now, for the listeners out there, say somebody's listening right now and they're thinking back and they realize that they were abused at some point in their life. And they're at the point where they've never told anyone, they've never talked about it, but even hide it from themselves. You know how, especially guys, we like to push things down.
Right.
What would be the first step or the first piece of advice that you would give someone like that?
First, I would say know this: the abuse was not your fault. So often we take on the blame, the shame, and the guilt that was not ours. And so much of this happens to young children. And think about, if parents get divorced, what does the child think? Oh, it must have been my fault. That the children are very egocentric at that age. So if you play hide and seek, oh, they're going to grab a blanket and hide under the blanket thinking, I can't see you, so you must not be able to see me. It's that mindset of how their brains function. So when, yeah, oh, a divorce happens, that must be my fault. Oh, this horrible thing happened. I must have done something wrong, or I must have done something bad, or I am bad. And that's why this bad thing happened. And that's how children process a lot of these traumas, and trying to get them to realize, oh, no, that was not your fault. This was a bad, evil person. And sometimes male, sometimes female. There are female perpetrators out there as well. That it was a bad person. You were just their target. If it wasn't you, it would have been another kid, but it was not your fault. Now, as an adult, we can choose how we respond to that trauma and get help or act out in unhealthy ways through substances or acting out sexually with others and all kinds of different ways where you can numb the pain. So we can choose that, though if you get help and if you get healing, you can help start overcoming those numbing behaviors that we end up using because we have all this pain. And it is a coping mechanism, not a healthy coping mechanism, but it gets you through to try to continue surviving with this huge, massive pile of pain. So get through it. I heard a quote saying, chase your pain and you will find your healing.
Mm, I like that.
That you can't just shove it down and numb it. You need to get it out and confront it and go through the pain. Then you can find your healing.
Yep, I agree with that 100% because I'm a coach myself, and most of the time with my clients, we find something that happened when they were a child that they've been carrying with them their whole life.
Right.
They basically are wearing a shirt of somebody else. They're not being who they want to be. They're acting like somebody they're not. And when you can dig down and figure that out and then start to work through it, their whole world opens up because they're like, oh, I am not who I thought I was. Now I can figure out who I want to be and then chase that person and become that person.
Absolutely. That so often uh, when we have that childhood trauma, we're trying to a big chunk of our brain power is trying to keep us safe. And that's what they
Mm-hmm.
call CPTSD, which stands for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Recognized internationally, US hasn't put it in their official mental health book yet, but I think the next version will probably be there. Most therapists understand it in the international book, whatever it is called, I think ID4, whatever, it is listed there. What it means is it's not just a one-time event like war veterans and so forth. It is ongoing trauma for months or for years. So much so that that fear, fight, flight response to trauma that we have, the brain no longer knows how to turn it off. So, because it's trauma after trauma after trauma. And when the trauma stops, the brain stays in that fight, flight, freeze. There's actually a whole list about, last I saw 8 different F words on responses to trauma. That if, and I'm losing my train of thought, that if you face trauma and it's again and again and again, your brain doesn't shut off. So those brain chemicals, the cortisol, all those things pumping through your system saying, I must stay safe. So that is a huge chunk of your brain processing. I must stay safe. There's no danger. There's no imminent danger. You are safe, but your brain doesn't know that. So where am I? Who am I? What time is it? Who is here? Who's not here? There's an adult in the room. Oh, they might be dangerous. So I have to do whatever I can to please them to keep myself alive. So you'll
Mm-hmm.
see acting out for children like teacher's pet. Sounds like a great behavior, but is it? It's people pleasing, trying to, if I keep this person happy, I will be safe. And so you put on masks and you don't even realize it's all subconscious. You put on this mask. Okay, I have to be this person that will keep that person happy. So then I can stay alive. And you start to lose, okay, who is your true self? Because I have to constantly wear masks for different people to keep myself alive to what I think they need me to be so I can stay alive. And so you're
Yep.
constantly wearing these different masks. And part of the healing, overcoming those things, turning off the hypervigilance is what it's called, where you're constantly keeping yourself safe and learning, okay, you don't have to have that hypervigilance. You don't have that fight, flight, freeze going on anymore. You can calm those things down
Yep.
and find out who the true you is, and that can shine forth. When I started going through my own healing, I started casually having conversations with people in line in the grocery store. That's not safe. I would never do that in a million years. All of a sudden, I'm just carrying on conversations like, what just happened? Did I really just do that? Oh my gosh. Who was that? And that's this new me emerging. And
Uh-huh.
now I'm a freaking podcast host where I share my story and share other people's stories. And that's this new me coming forward. And I like that new me.
Uh-huh.
That instead of the very scared, uh, overly anxious person that I was because of all of that trauma.
Yep. And everything that you talked about, all the fears that you just mentioned, it's all learned. We learn it all. When we're born, we're only born with two fears: the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises.
Yeah.
Every other fear you experience is learned. So every fear that you have can also be basically unlearned. And once you start working through those fears and realizing that you're actually not in danger like you thought, your whole life just opens up. I experienced that myself like 4 years ago. But I was always scared to go out in public because I have cerebral palsy. I
Mm-hmm.
walk different, I talk different, my hands move different, and I was so concerned about what other people were thinking, how they were judging me, that I would not be myself. And now I can go out and be myself. Or like you, I'm a podcast host. I talk to people all day, every day. 4 years ago, I couldn't order my own food at a restaurant because I was too scared to talk to the waiter. So yeah, like you can go far when you start to realize what you're afraid of, and then working through it.
Yeah, a friend of mine, she actually is one of my wife's good friends, would say, "Don't worry about what other people think. They don't care. They're in their own heads, wondering about the fears that they're facing about what they're doing, so they don't really even care what you're doing." It's like,
Yep,
oh, okay. And I love that because that's so true. Everyone's so worried about their own selves and how they're being portrayed. They don't have time to worry about you and how you're portraying yourself because they're still
that's
hung up
so
with all their
true.
own stuff. Yeah,
Yep, that's so
absolutely.
true.
Yeah,
And what you think that somebody else might be thinking is probably 10 times worse than what they're actually thinking.
right, right.
So, yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, your work, it's needed. You're helping a lot of people. I appreciate you myself. And before we wrap this up, I gotta ask you. So my slogan is your abilities are infinite. What does that mean to you?
My abilities are infinite. Wow. Um, yeah, once you get through all the pain and the crap, you can do whatever anything you set your mind to. And now I'm on this speakers bureau. I was just interviewed recently through a local TV station, interviewing me about my story as part of the speakers bureau I'm with. And that was like, okay, very cool. And the more I do it, I'm thrilled. First time I was interviewed on a podcast. I was so nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, it's horrible.
Same.
Uh, but you do it more and more. And it's like, okay, this is really comfortable. It kind of becomes addicting too. And
It
then
does.
so much so that we have to have our fix. So then we host our own podcasts, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And being able to speak publicly about these very serious issues, but then also realize I don't have this dark cloud around me. All these horrible things happen, full of trauma. I'm going to be totally depressed all the time. No, I laugh. My podcast, I love. I was interviewed once. Someone asked me, "Oh, talking about my issues," but her first question was, "Oh, so what's your favorite true crime podcast?" It's like, oh gosh, and didn't prep me with the question, so I like think, oh gosh, I gave her a really good answer, but I thought that was really cool because it humanized me and it
Uh-huh.
humanized her, and we just had this lovely little chit chat about stuff, And so I do that with my own podcast because I often have survivors of childhood trauma, abuse, trafficking, and so forth, and have this little chit chat. I've got some standard 4 questions that I ask at the beginning of the podcast, and where we just chit chat about things. And it shows we're human beings. We're normal people. We laugh, we enjoy things, and we have so much in common. And it's not all doom and gloom. Yes, we have horrible stories and horrible experiences that have scarred us and shaped us and hopefully overcome. But that doesn't define us.
No, it doesn't. Exactly. I love that you said that. It doesn't define you.
Absolutely. Yes. That Yeah, we have. I see you got a Muppet back there behind you, and I love Muppets.
Yeah,
There's so many different uh, uh, common things that we're just everyday people. We just have stuff, and everyone's
yeah,
got a stuff or
yeah,
several stuffs.
yeah. That's for sure.
Yes,
Awesome. And how can people reach out to you and get your help?
absolutely. The website is polarlifeconsulting.com, POLAR. That's also, I'm on Facebook and YouTube as well. And on that website is links to my podcast. I'm pretty much on every platform I can find.
Uh-huh.
So you can find me there. And yeah, we just did episode, I think we're on episode 61. Yay. I
Awesome.
record usually weekly and have some specials here and there, but lots of guests, a lot of them, most of them trafficking or abuse survivors, all male, telling their stories because males don't share this enough. And that's like that snowball effect I mentioned earlier, the theme of my podcast, Power of Story, that you share your story, you inspire somebody else to hear your story, and they're inspired to get healing to the point where they can share their story. And somebody else hears their story, and that person gets healing because of that story. So it's just this snowball effect, if you will. And that's the power of story. Like I don't know if you're following the Menendez trial, what's going on that they're trying to. It was huge in the 80s, right after OJ. They two brothers shot and killed their parents in California, and then claimed because they had been horrifically sexually abused by their father over long periods of time, and the mother was involved in it. So in that case, they would, this was back in the 90s before people knew that sexual abuse of boys was a thing. It was very not talked about. So they ended up, long story, got life in prison in LA County, in Los Angeles County. All of this new information is coming forward, including, I don't know if you're familiar with the band Menudo, also 80s. It's where Ricky Martin came out of. It was a Puerto Rico based band, and they would keep, it was all preteen teenagers. Once they hit 16, they would age them out and rotate younger members in. So they would always have that demographic
Mm-hmm.
of teenage boy band members. Turns out that boy band was also a sex trafficking front.
Mm.
And recently, one of those members came forward and started sharing his story that this happened to a lot of those members and
Wow.
said that, yeah, I even had one uh, record executive that the manager of the band who abused most of us took me to, they were signing a record deal, took me to this guy's house, and he sexually abused me as well. And do you know the guy's name? No, no, but I remember him. And then they showed him photographs and they said, oh yeah, that's the guy there. It was the Menendez's father, who not
Jeepers.
only sexually
Wow.
abused his boys, but sexually abused this band member. And he didn't know who he was. So just in the last couple of years, his stories come out, and now they're using that as extra evidence to show that this father did indeed abuse his boys. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as far as they have the concept coercive control, beyond domestic violence, they've broadened the scope. It's called coercive control, that someone has so much control over you that no, it's not, I have a gun to your head, you kill me. There's no way I'm going to get out of this alive. I have to go and kill them when they're not about ready to kill me, because tomorrow they might kill me, or tonight while I'm sleeping they might come kill me. So it's this preventative thing. They are using this as the defense. So the LA district attorney is reopening the case and looking at possibly reducing their sentence if they slightly reduced it to either a manslaughter or first degree murder underage. I think because it was special circumstance, they got life, but they were both under 25. So normally, if it was just first degree murder, they would have been eligible for parole now because they've served decades and decades in prison. And so even if they lower it to that slightly lower standard, they don't have to dismiss the excuse, but they can be out. And they're working through it, the ins and outs, but they're actually reopening of the case because of that and some other evidence that has come forward. That is the power of story. He shared his story, and it's freeing someone else in their story. So that, again, power of story.
Yep. The power of story is real. And all my clients, I help them with that. And just get out there, tell your story. That's why I love podcasting so much, because every time I have a guest, you're going to get something out of me that nobody's ever heard from my story, you know?
Right.
So it's just a remarkable way to tell your story, tell other stories, and actually, it's kind of like therapy, honestly. This episode of the Infinite Abilities podcast is brought to you by the one and only Infinite Toolbox, where just like all other toolboxes, we will get the job done, guaranteed. Whether you're an entrepreneur looking to save time, boost revenue, or automate your processes, Infinite Toolbox has got you covered. With powerful tools designed to drive leads, expand your reach, and gain your industry secrets, we help you work smarter, not harder. Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Visit us at infinitetoolbox.com. That's infinitetoolbox.com, and discover how infinite your potential really is.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Get out there and tell your story.
Yeah, anytime you can get the story out of your head and either on paper, whether it's anonymously or not, there's websites out there. You can contact me for information on where you can share your story anonymously, but you get it out. And then you not only get it out, it's a forum. So you get feedback from other members who are there anonymously and sharing their stories as well. But you get it out of your head. And once you do that, that's so healing. It jumpstarts your healing process because you're not just keeping it in, locked up inside of your head, inside of your heart. You're getting it out. And it's so freeing. It's like it releases the burden of that truth because you're getting it out there. And it's very, very freeing. That's another power of story for sure.
Yep, I agree. Well, Mike, for the listeners out there, what is one last message that you would like to leave them?
Again, the abuse was not your fault. Hope and healing is out there. You just need to look for it. If you need resources, get in touch with me. But absolutely, the abuse was not your fault.
Exactly. Thank you, Mike, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in the Nick Heart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.